All right, we're recording. Welcome to our Be Studious Q&A with Kat and Kelsey, and I'm just going to let you ladies take it from here.
All right.
Actually, I'm not. I'm going to say this to you girls. I watched the video also, if you didn't hear me just talking to them, if you joined a little later, and I really wish I would have had that knowledge before going to college. And I say this knowing I lettered in academics. I was that kid in high school, and all my friends knew exactly what they were going, where they were going, what they were doing. Like, that was our box. We had it. None of my friends ended up going where they thought they were going. None of them ended up in the professions they thought they were going to end up. Lots of school switching, major switching, going to get masters. So it's so great that they are presenting this knowledge to you, because it's something that even though if you think like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going to school, you really don't know what life is going to throw at you. And I think this knowledge is so, so great for you all to have. Okay, now I'm going to let you go.
Awesome. No, that was actually a really nice little segue into one thing that I try to tell our students, and I think it's especially pertinent to young women right now who are trying to, there's a lot of pressure at your guys' age to be like, I know what it is. I know what my life is going to turn into. I'm going to have this many kids. I'm going to be married by this age. I am going to go to this school, get this degree. And it's just not like that. I think that expectation creates a lot of perpetuated pressure in you guys. But just to give you guys a little bit of background about myself and Kat, I don't think either of us ended up working in the fields that we thought we were going to at 17, 18 years old, right? So I have a degree in musical theater. Very clearly, I am not doing musical theater for my, my money-making profession right now, but there are ways of starting somewhere, kind of assessing what skills you have, and then taking it into some place that's even more gratifying and someplace that your skills really can be honed and used. And so I have the distinct pleasure of working with students and talking to their parents and understanding where they are, where they're at in this journey. And it has really heightened my people skills, for example. So understanding that this process is not linear and taking that pressure off of yourself, I think, is a fantastic way to start, because no matter what happens, if you go to school and you get yourself there, you're going to figure out who you are along the way. And I think Kat can probably attest to that too.
Kelsey's an amazing singer, actress, and dancer, by the way.
Thank you.
And
Sweet.
she all of those skills she uses actually in the day-to-day. And so don't shy away from theater either. I know everybody's like, theater, what are you going to do with that? But you do a lot with it. I'm also kind of a theater kid. I found theater in college later. I thought that I was going to be a veterinarian when I was 17, 18. I was actually 150% sure that I was going to be a veterinarian. I had already looked into vet school. I knew what I needed. I graduated high school a year early and started community college, which if you watch the video, I said a little bit about that at the end. But my plans had completely changed. I grew up riding horses competitively and thought that I was going to be in the Olympics, and was pretty on that track. I was placing nationally. I was qualifying for the Junior Olympics, and I got in a really bad car accident my junior year. And I lost my short-term memory, and I got a concussion, and I knocked my equilibrium off just enough that I couldn't ride anymore. So my whole plan for everything got turned upside down. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to be on horseback, I'll be around horses, because I'd spend a lot of time with veterinarians. And so when I entered into undergrad, I was on the pre-vet track. I was a biology major with a pre-vet emphasis. I took every science class known to man. My first hint should have been that I also tried to shove in every single history and theater class into my schedule. In fact, I overloaded my schedule so much that the counselors knew me as I came in with my sheet of paper that says, taking 24 units this semester. They're like, are you sure that's a good plan? I'm like, just sign it. Just sign it. It's fine. I have straight A's. Just sign it. So part of veterinary school is you're supposed to have clinical hours. So you need hours working with veterinarians in order to round out your application. And so right before I transferred into 4-year at Santa Clara, I spent an entire summer interning with 2 veterinarians here in my hometown, and discovered I didn't want to be a veterinarian. And that was that was pretty eye-opening, because I am a planner and I like to know what I'm doing and where I'm going. And I discovered I like horses, and that's about it. I like cats too. I don't like any really other animal, especially cows and pigs. And you can't be a large animal vet not liking most animals. So that was kind of a problem. I I literally panicked because I didn't have a plan and everybody knew I was going to be a veterinarian. And so I talked with my dad, and he was an English professor at the time. And he was just like, I don't know, write down everything you might want to do and then find a major that fits that, which actually wasn't bad advice. So I wrote down everything I might want to do for a living. And then I Googled a major. I do not recommend this is the way that you go about it. So I became a communications major because it's very broad and I could go into business or education. But it utilized actually all of the things that I was already good at. I was a great writer. I loved making movies. I loved storytelling. I loved everything about that. And then when I got to university, they told me, you have enough history classes that you could be a classics major. You have like 5 more classes to take, and you have to take like an ancient language. And I was like, ooh, I get to take an ancient language? Yes, sign me up. So I'm the dork that took ancient Greek for fun because I'm a dork. And I would have had my classics, bachelor's of arts in classics, but I had one advanced Roman civilization class that I could just not shove into my schedule at the same time as my senior thesis. So I spent a lot of time the next 10 years just searching. I thought that I'd be a teacher. I started shadowing teachers and discovered that that's not what I wanted to do. I moved to LA because I thought that I would be a cinematographer and use all of my video and film knowledge, and got on set and realized I didn't like that either. So I ended up in the business end of entertainment a little bit more and hated that too. And I always gravitated back toward students. I really liked working with students. I randomly got a costume design position at a community college and started working with students again and realized that they were just as lost as I was in admissions. And so I started helping all the theater kids with their applications. And then all of a sudden I realized that this is something I could do for a living. Sounds amazing. And so that's where we are now. And I love my job. And that's where we are now.
And now you find us here.
and to catch you up to 2020. But everything that I researched, I realized that I like planning out the path. I don't actually want to take organic chemistry, but I like planning out the path and the possibility of organic chemistry if I don't have to do the work of that part. So I like planning out all these different paths and the classes you can take and how the skills transfer over and how do you get into med school or how do you become an engineer? How do you get into musical theater? That's my jam. So, that was a really long story. I'm sorry. I just get excited. So as Kelsey said, don't pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Think more about what you enjoy doing and what you're really good at doing. Because that's going to lead you more than saying, I'm going to be this one title.
Right.
Because there are so many different avenues within one title that you don't even know about yet. And a lot of them don't even exist yet and won't for another 4 or 5 years when you're out of college. So
oh, yeah. I can assure you guys that the business development manager for March Consulting, I didn't know that was a job that was available to me. It's just kind of about keeping your mind open and understanding like what you as an individual can bring to any position, right? Like once you know your strengths and what you bring to the table, then it's kind of hard to argue with you about what you're good at, right? Because you're like, I know this about myself. I know that I could be an asset. And then you just got to kind of decide what sort of fields you can be an asset to. But I think we at March Consulting work a lot on building your personal strengths, far more than being like, all right, what is your end goal? And I'm sure you girls have heard this and it's so kitschy, but it really is true, is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? Like you have to go through the different obstacles and you'll learn things about yourself along the way. And then just be kind to yourself, right? Like don't get upset with yourself when something doesn't work out. You just hit that wall and you're like, all right, well, let's take a left now and let's see what left has to offer. And left doesn't work out. All right, 180 turn, let's go back this direction. And eventually you're going to be like, you know what? I'm really happy and I know what value I bring. And I know it because of all the little lefts and 180s that I had to make along the way.
I think that's really important because I spent a lot of time hating myself because I am not naturally gifted towards numbers. And so I took all the advanced math classes and I got good grades in them, but I'm not naturally gifted. And so I had to work 3 times harder to understand the concepts. And I beat myself up about that because I wanted to be that like STEM major. Like I wanted to be the engineer or the doctor. And what I didn't realize that whole time is I'm pretty unbeatable writing a an amazing English essay. And I never gave myself credit for that. Like, you want a history essay, you want a term paper, you want something, I can bust that out like nobody's business. First draft, don't recommend doing the first draft, but if I had to, I could write a pretty mean first draft. And I never gave myself credit for it. I was always just focused on what I was bad at. And there's a lot of things that you're really good at. You need to just embrace that and be nice to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Like you would never say, oh, well, you know, pardon my French, you suck at that. You should probably not do that. Like, you would never say that to anybody. So why do you say it to yourself? And we do. We say that to ourselves all the time. I know, you know it.
I had a question. So
Yeah.
I'm totally like you, Kat, in that ever since 7th grade, I've always felt this pressure to know what I had to do, right? Like, I was going to be a chemical engineer. I was going to go down the pharmaceutical path. And then lately, especially as I'm writing my college applications on and reflecting on what I want in life, I'm starting to realize that that might not be the path for me. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with not knowing what I want to do, because for me, it's like I want to consider like the moral implications of my job and actually enjoying what I do. But the thing is, it's because I'm so undecided. Like, not only does that kind of feel weird, but I feel like I don't want to say behind, but of course there's people who kind of already have their path, but I also don't know how to communicate that in my essays to colleges, that I don't see myself somewhere, if that makes sense. Like, I promise you, I have potential. Please take me. but I don't necessarily know what I want to do. If that
Right,
makes
you don't want to
sense.
pigeonhole yourself to one thing.
Exactly. Yes.
It's a good question.
The best thing, like the best advice that I have for you is, we do get focused on all these students that we know that have known that they want to do this one thing since like before they could walk, right? Everybody in high school that I knew that knew what they wanted to do completely changed their minds later. So there's a little bit of like breathing in that. The best thing to do when you're communicating that in your college applications, and you said something really key here, is you said you want to understand the moral implications of your work. And if you focus on that and how you want to further explore how your skills can make a difference, how can you learn about these bigger problems, how can be exposed to new ideas and these bigger ideas, that actually makes you a stronger applicant, because you're telling me what you want to learn at my school as to what career you want after you've graduated.
Right.
And so as you're looking at schools, I would recommend that you look at some liberal arts colleges that have a broad curriculum that focus on thinking through bigger problems, because they're going to help guide you in what that translates to pathwise. So you might, be more on the business end of pharmaceuticals because you're still interested maybe in chemistry and, but maybe you're looking at what's the best way that we can get these medications to help this community. Management aspect of healthcare. How do we keep the price down so that we can help this population of people? And so there's a lot of opportunities there. We just don't talk about them because, like, what's the job title there? Like health administrator or, community something or other, right? But when you're writing about what you want to learn, focus on, I want to understand how my work affects others. I want to understand and open my mind up to different avenues that I don't even know yet. And that's what I'm hoping for my 4 years of my education. The best way to structure that kind of essay without getting too much into the weeds of it, or why do you want to come to this school, is talk about intellectually what you're hoping to learn, socially what you're hoping to learn, and then maybe, as a citizen, what you're hoping to learn. Maybe whether that's a citizen of the world, a citizen of the country, a citizen of chemistry, whatever that community looks like. But that makes it a little bit easier to wrap your mind around. And so you're like, intellectually, I really want to learn to think through. Socially, I want to be in a collaborative environment where it's really open, and I can get to know people, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think it's really important that I understand different cultures and different viewpoints. And so I would like to, volunteer, be part of the community over here and learn more about where they're coming from or study abroad, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's an amazing essay. And that tells me more than I want to be an engineer and I want to, develop skills so I can get a good job in the future. We haven't told me anything about my university and what you're going to do there. So you actually have an advantage. It doesn't feel like an advantage, but if you can get to that level of what you're hoping to learn or what you're hoping to be exposed to, that will help a lot.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and then Vivian, I actually kind of want to piggyback off of what she was saying, Vivian, right? I see it at the bottom, so I want to make sure I'm getting it correct. We see a lot of essays come through, right? A part of what we do is helping these students structure essays and bring something that's kind of more enticing than just the standard, I want to go to USC because I dreamed of going to it since I was 5 years old, right? And something that really is outstanding and interesting to admissions officers is when you're presenting something that isn't like something they've seen before. So being able to, I really want to understand this portion of what I'm learning, and I'm excited about, learning more about what this means to me. It goes a little bit deeper than, I want to go here because I love USC football. You know what I mean? So I don't want you to shy away from being like very honest about what you're hoping to get out of your college education, no matter where you're applying, because that's what the colleges want to hear. And it sets you apart from maybe the essays that are like, I'm just really excited about being at this school, right? It has some moral and intellectual depth to it. So you've already tapped into something that I think is really usable and important for you anyway. So don't shy away from the excitement that you feel about the deeper topics.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions?
You can ask us anything. We will literally answer anything. And there are no stupid questions, because I think one of the biggest mistakes we as adults make, and all of the adults in our lives when we were teenagers made the same mistake, is that we assume that you guys know a whole bunch about college, and you don't, because you haven't been there yet. And you haven't, all the vocabulary and everything's all new. So don't be afraid that you're going to ask, a basic question, because that's normal. You should ask basic questions like, what's undergraduate? What is that? Right? So don't be scared. Ask anything. Answer it. Anything you want to know.
I guess just as I'm working on my college essays, I've gone through a couple of rough drafts now, and at this point I'm kind of just going through and nitpicking and perfecting what I'm getting ready to submit. Do you have one overall, I guess, just biggest tip as you're getting to that final leg of getting ready to actually submit your applications and submit your essays? What would that be?
Yes. So the best piece of advice I can give you, and it's not necessarily super essay specific, but as you're looking at your application as a whole and you're pulling everything together, I want you to do two things. I want you to look through and tell yourself, what am I telling them about me in each piece of my application? And make sure that you have said everything that you feel is really important to understanding who you are, right? The second is you selected this particular school for a reason. And most likely, even if it wasn't, I looked at the mission, vision, and values, and I agree with everything that they have. But as you were looking at mission, vision, and values, because you wouldn't be applying otherwise, go through and look up the school's mission, vision, and values. And if they don't have it clearly posted, kind of look at the themes on the website of what you see. We think differently. We learn by doing. We're, doing this amazing research to solve big problems, like whatever that theme is. And identify in your application where you have demonstrated those themes back to the school. So let's talk about UCLA, because everybody knows UCLA, I hope. We're all in California, right? So everybody knows UCLA. Look at UCLA's mission, vision, and values. What do they hope to teach their students? What do they hope to achieve? Now, in your UC UCLA's mission, vision, and values. That's the best way that you can make it your application as strong as possible. Now, you don't want to like copy paste it, you know. I would love to study chemistry, and I think it's extremely important that we produce global citizens on a high research like no, you know. But how could you demonstrate that you are an action taker, that you have a passion for a big problem in the world, and you've taken some sort of step to make something better that you have control over? Or how have you overcome adversity to live out your potential, right? You can demonstrate those things in pieces of your application, whether it's a community service project that you've been a part of. You know, being in DYW, you're also learning more about yourself and who you are, what your place is in the world. It's okay to talk about that in your application, right? So there's these different areas, you know, in your letters of recommendation, I see that my teachers had focused on my character here. And then in my activities, I made sure that I was demonstrating that I'm a doer here, here, and here, that I have empathy here, here, and here, that I took something I was really passionate about and took it as far as I could take it here, here, and here. And then in my essays, I thought it was really important that they know that I overcame this and learned this about myself, and that was what makes me an asset here, that I took action here, here, and here. So you can go through and kind of audit your entire application and be like, these are all the areas that I demonstrated back to them that I'm the perfect student. Because what happens is like, this is my university, this is what I believe in, right? This is what I want to teach you. This is what you believe in. These are your goals. Oh, we were meant for each other. A great example of this, I went to Santa Clara. Santa Clara is really big on liberal arts, solving big problems, social justice, and lifting up those around you. And community service is a big component of being at Santa Clara. Like, you are required to do community service in some of your classes. So if you don't want to do community service, well, Santa Clara is probably not the school for you, right? But you would see that as you're putting your application together, that you need to, oh, I need to emphasize that I did service. I love service. I love learning about all these different things. You can see that in the application.
Right.
So that would be the best thing that you can do, is just go through an audit and make sure that each application matches with each school that you're giving it to.
Totally. And then once you've done that and you've taken the time to make sure that you have structured your essay in such a way that you are a good fit for these schools, put it down. Right? It's hard to do. I am so that student too, where I want to pick it apart and I want to start over because I've just read it so many times that it all sounds like mishmash and I can't make sense of it. Trust your initial instinct, right? You're a smart student. You've been working hard to compile your applications and your essays. So once you've gone through how Kat said, you know, that audit for yourself, and you're like, yep, I did this, and this, check for grammar, and then put it down and trust your first instinct, right? Because you will end up creating something that maybe wasn't authentic to what you wanted in the first place, because you are picking yourself apart and criticizing more than you need to. So trust what you're doing, trust your process, do your double checking and all of that, but don't feel like you need to start over and be overcritical of what you've already executed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a few more ladies join us. Anyone who's new to this meeting, welcome. We're just asking Kat and Kelsey any questions you guys have about college admissions, going to college, the process. And as they said before, there's no stupid questions. It's just a very open space to have you guys ask any questions you might have. I watched the video that they sent out as well, and I found it very informative. I wish I had seen it before I went to college. And what hit me the most is I actually went to a junior college instead of going to a different college right away, even though I had rides to them, because kind of like you, Vivian, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I couldn't justify spending that much money when I didn't even know why I wanted to go there, like what I wanted to do or what major I wanted. And I had kind of thought that going to junior college was looked down upon, but then I went and I loved it. I stayed extra, got a few degrees because I liked it so much. But then when I moved on to an actual college, I knew what I wanted. I knew exactly why I was there. So if you don't, if you're feeling a little confused, I think that's totally part of it. I'm 30 and I still don't know what I'm doing. Oh, and now my dog's barking. So ladies, if you have questions, please ask them.
And if not, I'll just riff. I'll just give you advice.
I have a technical question. It has to do with FAFSA. That's been quite annoying. So I was just sorry. That was not a part of my question. I was just wondering. Just needed to let it out there. This thing is kind of really annoying, and you need to know my whole life story. And I'm probably not going to even get the financial aid. But anyways, it's okay. I was wondering when's a good time to turn it in, because we've been kind of holding on to it, and at this point, I'm kind of I don't know why we're holding on to it, or if there's any benefit to that.
So the FAFSA, they do ask a lot of questions, and it is pretty lame. So you're not wrong in that. It's it's did you go to Taco Bell last week? I need that receipt, please. How much did you spend? How many burritos did you get? And you're like, what is this? How is this relevant to school? I don't know. So with the FAFSA, you want to file it. It opens October 1st every year. And if you're a senior, if you're applying, you do want to get it in as early as possible because you have first priority to any grant money that's out there for schools. I'm going to back up a little bit and teach you a little bit about why we do this stupid application, because I think it'll make it a little bit easier, and how you can change your list to get some more scholarships. So I'm going to give you some secret sauce details here. So the way that financial aid is determined by a college is there's kind of two buckets. There's a need-based bucket. It's based on your parents' tax returns, or your guardian's tax returns, or if you're independent, your tax returns or lack of tax returns, right? And then on the other side, there's merit-based scholarships and grants that are based solely on your grades and your test scores and the fact that you train honing pigeons or whatever they want to assign merit to, okay? Well, it's DYW. You might train honing pigeons. I don't know, because you girls are amazing. Young ladies, sorry, not girls. So on the need-based side, what they do is you would file your FAFSA, and from that, the Department of Education takes all of that financial data from your parents' tax returns, your guardian's tax returns, et cetera, and it comes up with a number called your expected family contribution. It's also known as an EFC. And that number is based on what they say, and sometimes it's very flattering, and you're like, oh, I'm glad you think that I would want to pay that for college, but it's what you can afford for college every year, okay? When we look at the price of school, we're looking at a total cost of attendance, which is everything it is to go to that school for the year. That has your tuition and fees, your dorm and all your meals, your books and supplies. If it's out of state, they give you about a $2,000 transportation budget for plane tickets and things like that. If you're in state, it's about $500 for gas. And then depending on the area of the country your college is in, they give you a little bit of extra money for personal expenses, like Target, pizza, socks, right? So all of that's in your total cost of attendance. So what the financial aid office is going to do when they get your FAFSA is they're going to look at that EFC, and they're going to look at their total cost of attendance, okay? Let's take USC for an example. So let's say that your family's EFC is $10,000 a year. Well, USC's total cost of attendance, nobody fall over, I know it's is $75,000 a year. Whew. It's a very nice car every year that we buy, okay? So we have 75 and 10, okay? Different schools will cover what's called that gap, that need-based gap. So we have a $65,000 gap between what the Department of Education says that you can afford per year and how much USC is. USC happens to be one of those schools that cover 100% of that gap. So they would give you a $65,000 a year scholarship, okay? Which if you get into USC is probably not bad. I mean, hopefully we can cover that, or that initial 10,000, right? Or you can take that out. I don't like student loans because I have student loans, and I don't like student loans. I don't like giving my money away every month. But let's say that your EFC was $35,000. Now we have a $45,000 gap. Is that right? $40,000 gap. Math, not to be a stereotype, but mental math. Okay, $40,000 gap, right? Now we're looking at $35,000 for USC. Okay, let's say that your EFC is 85,000, then you're looking at the full pay for USC unless they give you a merit scholarship. So that's why it's important now, if you can calculate what that EFC is, and you can do that through the College Board or the school's what's called net price calculator, and kind of see if you can get that cost down as much as possible and look and see how much each school is going to cover. That'll save you money later. It's something that I didn't do. I just applied and hoped for the best. And then my university, I didn't have $50,000 a year to go to. So that was also a little bit like, oh, I can't go to my school because I don't have, and then I was like, I'll just take out $90,000 in loans. I don't care. And then I visited Santa Clara and I was like, oh, that's really nice. On the other hand, for merit-based aid, there's a lot of schools that have like tuition breaks that based on your grades and your test scores will give you massive scholarships. Now, a lot of them are not on the coasts because everybody wants to be on the West Coast or the East Coast, right? But there are some incredible schools in the Midwest that would roll out a red carpet and pay you to go there, that have incredible opportunities, and you might even like better than, you know, a crowded school by the beach. So something to kind of look at. And then merit-based aid is based solely on who you are, what you've done, your grades, etc. And a lot of times for those tuition discounts and things like that, they don't even require an additional application. Like if you have a 4.0 plus unweighted and you want to go to University of Arizona, they will give you $35,000 a year to go there, just right off the bat. Which means that if you're a California student, it's almost cheaper to go to University of Arizona, where you could be in their honors program, great research school, everything else, for less than Cal Poly SLO, which is kind of nice. So long story short to your FAFSA question, you do want to get that in soon. You want to do the IRS matching tool because it'll autofill a lot of things for you. There are a couple schools that use an additional financial aid application, and you need to look out for those. Here in California, those are schools like University of San Diego, USC, and Stanford, and Santa Clara, my alma mater. They use something called the CSS profile, which is through the College Board, and it goes more in depth into your parents' finances. That one will take you about an hour and a half to fill out. So don't leave that till the day before because the system crashes and you don't want to do that. But I would get your financial aid applications in as early as you can because it just pre-qualifies you for more money if you qualify for it. Even if you don't qualify for it, even if you don't think that you're going to get any money, you actually have more negotiating power in the spring to ask schools for more money if you've turned in your FAFSA. That's nice too. And you can write schools, like get it down to your top 3 and say St. Louis University gave me $35,000 a year, or gave me $20,000 a year. University of Arizona gave me $35,000, but St. Louis, I really want to go to your school. Is there anything that you can do? Here's all the things that I've accomplished since I've turned in my application, and you're my number 1, and I would love to go there. Is there anything else that you can offer? 50% of the time, they'll give you more money. 50% of the time, they won't, but those are pretty good odds for one letter, right? So don't be afraid to ask for more either.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really wish I'd met you so long ago. You're just blowing my mind. So
if I would have known everything then that I know now, I wouldn't have student loans. Let's just put it that way.
That's what I was going to also say is, yeah, I agree with you. If girls, just as a side advice, if you don't have to take out student loans, I would highly advise against it because they stick with you forever. You can't
ever get rid of them.
Don't go away.
The one thing that I think that the advantage that your generation has that ours didn't is that we were told by all of the adults in our lives to go to the best college possible. Don't worry about the cost. Take out a loan. You'll get this amazing job outside of college, because at that point it was the early 2000s and that's what was happening. And then the last 20 years, we've just had recession after recession after recession. And that never held true. And so we have all these debts, and we didn't have all the the entrance counseling and all the paperwork that you guys do to help you understand what you're signing up for. They were just like, sign here. We're like, sure. And then 6 months after you graduate, you get a call. This is Kat from the Department of Education. And are you ready to start paying off your student loans? And you're like, I took out loans. What? I didn't. Did I? Oh, how much money do you want to? Oh, okay. I didn't know I signed that. So that's the advantage you guys have now, is that there's a lot more documentation. You'll understand more what you're signing up for. Whereas back in my day, we just signed papers and hope for the best. So more questions? Because like literally anything, you can ask me about the admissions process. You can ask me about what admissions officers are looking for. How do you make your application stronger? Anything you want.
I actually do have a question for you guys. I guess it's kind of hard because I can't see everybody's face, but maybe Kelsea, you can help me out. Are most of you girls juniors or seniors right now?
They're all seniors.
All seniors in the group. That's perfect. So you guys have lots of things to be thinking about.
Of doing it. That's why I'm like, I feel like they're probably almost overwhelmed because they're literally in the thick of it. I don't envy any of you. But that's why I wanted to set this up. So if you girls did have any questions, because college it's a lot to kind of navigate through. So they're definitely here at your disposal to ask any questions you might have.
Yeah, and if questions end up coming up later on, because you may, get to eating lunch later on and you're like, dang, I forgot to ask Kat and Kelsea this. I don't know if any of you guys have a pen, but I'm going to give Kelsea my email address too. But my email is Kelsea, I think it should be in my little box, at mymarchconsulting.com. So if you guys have anything that comes up, you just want some clarification, you need some moral support through all the crazy learn at home, you guys are talking about going back, and you're also going to college. So there's a lot going on. Please utilize us. We are so happy to help you guys in this organization. So we're definitely here for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys doing that. That's awesome. I guess, does anyone have any questions? Because I'll ask questions if no one has questions. I guess, what would you guys say are like, no. What happens when you don't get into the college that you want? And then you're just left with like, what do I do now?
There's a lot of ugly crying. I'm not going to lie. I balled up. UPenn was my number one choice. And I didn't know when I applied that they take literally 25 transfer students a year, 25 in the entire country. I got my rejection letter. I actually got a letter before, like the month before decisions, that said that I needed to take my calculus final early because they needed my final grades for the spring semester. So as you can imagine, taking my calculus final early worked really well. Just say it's the only C I've ever gotten in my entire life. It was a 79.5 and she didn't round it up. Not that I'm still bitter about it, but I did take my calc final a month early. I got my rejection letter from UPenn and I locked myself in my room for about 2 hours and curled up in a ball and ugly cried that I was like human garbage and nobody wanted me and the Ivies hated me and my whole future was ruined. And then after 2 hours, I went and got some chocolate ice cream and I was a little bit better. And I did not tell my parents what happened. Luckily, nobody was home when it happened. But the very next day, I got like 4 other acceptance letters. And so it took me a little bit of bravery to tell my parents that I'd been rejected from my number one. But as you can see, I am still alive and I survived it. And I ended up at the school that I was supposed to go to. I will give you a couple tools though. If you do get denied and you feel like you had not properly represented yourself in your application, there is a way that you can appeal your decision. And so everybody's like, wait, you can argue with the admissions office? Yes, you can. The UCs, you can appeal. A lot of schools you can appeal. There is a process you have to go through. There's a paperwork process. You do have to have more information that you can tell the admissions office about yourself. So I had a student who appealed UC Santa Barbara last year because she didn't feel as though she had properly represented herself in her application. She had not included 2 very big pieces of information that she felt would have been more relevant. And so she wrote in her appeal letter, I wanted to add that my interest in psychology has stemmed from this, this, and this, and her community service and helping with her brother. And in turning that in and following all the steps, she was actually accepted to UC Santa Barbara, and that's where she is now. So you can appeal. All you need to do is Google the name of the school and their appeals process. This is the same for financial aid. There's a financial aid appeals process. So if you feel like they're not giving you enough money or your income has changed, you can do that. But you can also do that for denials. Now, I would definitely put a deposit in at your second choice school so that you know you have a seat at your second choice school, because usually appeals, you will not hear what the results are until June or July. And you will have to make your decision for most schools by May 1st. So make sure that you have a spot at your second choice and then try for your first and see what they say. This year, it's very uncertain. So we might see more success. If you get waitlisted, there's a high chance this year that you might be waitlisted because of the uncertainty of what's going on. It does not have anything to do with you. It just has to do with the way admissions put the class together. If you get waitlisted, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to write a letter to admissions that says, you are still my number one choice. This is what I've accomplished since I've turned in my application. This is why I think I would be an amazing fit for your school. And you're going to turn that in immediately. Last year, we had a lot of waitlist students come in. They wrote that letter, and for a couple different schools, within four to 5 days, they got off the waitlist and they were in. So don't assume that it has anything to do with you. They might just waitlist 200 students and see if their remaining 50 spots get filled because students who show interest. It's demonstrated interest. If you don't get into the school that is your number one and your appeal is denied, I promise you that your future is not over. As I said in the presentation, you're going to go where you're supposed to go. You're going to do amazing things there. And it doesn't matter the name of the institution. It matters what you're going to accomplish while you're there.
Totally. And then just because you guys really are in the thick of applying right now, right? You guys are still sending in your applications. You guys are still applying for those early decision things. Right now is the time to have this conversation about what happens when I get my acceptances back. So with our students at March Consulting, it happens rarely, if ever, that we're like, yes, this first choice school is the only school that you are going to apply for. Right? That never happens. All of our students apply for like a minimum of 10 schools, and all of those are categorized a little bit differently with different expectations. So we have like our wild card schools, we have our reach schools, we have net schools, which
Target.
Target, thank you, which is like a way better word than safety school because it just kind of like fits, but it's not, we don't like the word safety school. But anyhow, we are having our students apply for the UCs, the CSUs, and private schools. They're getting a nice little conglomerate of all three of those. So if, say, you applied early decision to UPenn or Stanford or Berkeley, right? And you hear back and it's not going to work out initially. Totally go and do your appeal stuff, do your ugly Kim Kardashian cry that you need to, and you totally should process through all that stuff. But then understand once you send your appeals, there are still, a handful, 9, 8 schools that are going to send you acceptance letters. Understand that that's not the end of the road. And what's really big for you guys, and it's hard because we are in the middle of a pandemic. So we have always really encouraged college visits, right? Boots to soil, ASAP, go see what you like about the school, see what vibes it gives you. Is it positive? Do you not like the size of the campus? Would you rather have a more one-on-one relationship with your professor? Are you cool being in a lecture hall? All of those are very personal to each individual student. And so how can you know that you're devastated that you didn't get into your first choice school if maybe you're visiting, like Kat did, Santa Clara, and she's like, wow, this kind of just, I didn't want it to work, but it kind of just works, right? And for those of you who can't really, travel, you guys shouldn't really be going across the country to Washington, D.C. or anything like that right now, but there are virtual tours, right? So get online and figure out what you can, read about the school, get into those virtual tours, walk around, do what you can to figure out exactly how devastated you actually are, because the chances that the universe is putting you exactly where you need to go in the first place are really high, right? So like I said, get your ugly Kim K cry out of the way because it is valid, because you were so excited. But then be like, you know what, maybe this is a chance for something different and something better and something that's going to fit me a little bit nicer than I even expected, right? So there are options, and I think our biggest piece of advice is don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Because you can't, it's none of your business, quite frankly, what the admissions officers are thinking about your application. All you can do is present the best version of yourself and then let the rest follow. So if you have lots of options, you are leaving yourself open to lots of opportunity.
Most admissions decisions too have nothing to do with you.
Right.
They don't. They're just putting their freshman class together. You know, we had 400 trumpet players apply, and we need 2 oboe players. That's not something that you really have any control of unless you chose the oboe in 4th grade.
Well,
right?
and yeah. And you have to consider that they're looking at, paper, they're looking at your transcripts, they're looking at your activities resumes, your essays, and they are trying to get the best idea of who this person is through pieces of paper, right? Guaranteed, if you had the opportunity to go and shake hands and introduce yourself and explain your life story to all of these admissions officers, things would maybe look a little bit different, but they're getting flooded with applications and are trying to get the best insight as to who you are as a person, as a student, and as a student just by reading about you. So it's never personal. It's never personal. Absolutely. And that's what I have to say about that.
I would say that's awesome. I'm a big believer in you are where you're meant to be. So I totally agree. We have about 10 minutes left. We're coming to a close. I want to ask the girls again if they have any questions, but then also just big advice from you guys, kind of like, you do this all the time. So the questions probably you get to ask the most. And then since you brought up COVID and they might be attending college in this kind of era, since you've been working with students during this time, do you have any extra advice on that area? Or is it just kind of like what you said, just put your best out there and it'll be okay?
There's a lot of uncertainty like this admission season because a lot of schools are test optional, right? A lot of you have not been able to take an SAT or an ACT, and the AP tests were different this year. Most admissions officers, I say most because I can't 100% guarantee that all of them, but like this is all we've been talking about as consultants and high school counselors and admissions officers literally since April, is how they understand that things are different. They understand that you're doing virtual learning. They understand that none of the activities you had planned happened. They understand that you weren't able to take a test. They understand all of that. So you don't have to worry that you're at a disadvantage because of COVID, because they know. Literally, Boston College's admissions officer told me, because a consultant had asked, should students be doing things during quarantine? Should they be finding extra things to do? And the Boston College admissions officer looked at all of us and she said, I am just surviving right now. So I would not expect any student to do more than survive right now. Please do not go out and try to learn 8 new languages and everything else. If you feel passionate about something, do it, but don't feel like you're obligated. Admissions officers know. The other thing is that you're not at a disadvantage for most schools not applying with test scores because they know. They'll weigh more heavily on other parts of your application. In terms of attending this next fall, hopefully we have a vaccine and everything returns to as normal as we can get it. But for the most part, the class of 2020 that started out virtually online has still had connections. They feel like they're part of the community. The colleges have been doing everything that they can to make that happen. So you're not going to be just kind of like out in the ether somewhere. Everybody's kind of in the same boat, which is nice. Because everybody's experiencing this at the same time at varying levels, yes, but colleges are doing everything that they can to help. So I know this is a weird season. We're rolling with the punches just as much as you guys are. I've never been on so many admissions calls and info sessions and what are you guys doing and how are you putting this together, and here's the questions we're getting from students, can you answer them? That's all they know. The other thing the big piece of advice that I would probably give you as a student, and every single senior who's ever come before you will tell you this, 2 things. 1, don't procrastinate. Do not be sending your applications in the day that it's due, because the application site will crash. The Common App will crash 3 separate times. on the day that everything's due. The UC app will crash on various times on November 30th. You need to get everything in at least 2 to 3 days ahead of the deadline. Please just do yourself that favor and ask for all those supporting materials ahead of time, not after you've gotten your application in. The second is that there are some very standard emotional stages you'll go throughout this process. One of them is, oh my gosh, it's real and I don't know what I'm going to do with my life and I have to decide the next 60 years right now and I don't even want to think about it. Can I just be a senior? Can I just be a kid? Oh my goodness. Everybody else is feeling the exact same way. They're just not talking about it. There's going to be a point where you're going to forget any of this ever happened and you're going to try not to think about it until acceptance letters has come in. And then you're going to realize that it is real and you're moving and maybe I should just stay here in my comfort zone. That's also normal. I promise you when you get on campus, you're not going to be hungry with dirty clothes because you couldn't figure out how to operate the washing machine and where the cafeteria was. That's all part of freshman year. Nobody knows each other. It's not like you're transferring high schools. That's what you get those like really tight friendships and you experience those, that type of community is because everybody's in the same boat.
Right. I also just want to throw in, this is kind of a hard and fast advice. Do fight every instinct within yourself when you're writing your essays right now. When the question is, explain to us some sort of adversity you've had to overcome, fight every instinct to talk about COVID. Don't write about the coronavirus pandemic because, as Kat mentioned, everybody is so aware of it. It's firing on all fronts at all times, and admissions offices really want to hear about something other than this year. And while this year has validly been very tough for all of you students, especially, try your darndest not to write about it because they know how hard it has been on you guys, and it's kind of like an opt-in right now, right? Kind of an easy out to write about because this is an adversity for everybody, and so we do want to make sure that your essays are set apart from what we are all currently experiencing.
Don't write, if you got 1B throughout your entire high school career, don't write about that 1B you got. It actually tells me that you can survive if you got a B. So don't write about the B. It doesn't matter. It's okay. You're going to go to college. It's going to be awesome.
I did get one question here in the chat. It says, my school started workshops for USC and UC colleges, but they haven't started the FAFSA process. Who do you suggest we go to for help? I've tried my counselor and she will not help me. I understand that. My counselor did not help me either in high school.
To defend your counselor a little bit, your counselor has like 500 or 600 other students that they're handling at the time. So I don't want to throw counselors under the bus. They're paddling as fast as they can. What you can do, there's kind of two different avenues. A lot of schools have a career center or someone on campus who's a specialist in the FAFSA. They're assigned through the state of California to help in your district. But like tracking down that person can kind of be sometimes a nightmare if it's not apparent who that person is. So what I highly, highly recommend that you do is go to fafsa.ed.gov. It's the website that the FAFSA is on. And they will actually guide you pretty easily step through step on filling that out. So you can click on learn more. You can click on start here. They have videos to help you. But I would start there because they do kind of step you through it. It's annoying, but it's not like impossible to do. And so what they'll do is they'll have you create your login and then you'll start filling out your information like your name and your address and things like that. And then you'll add in your high school, then you'll add in your colleges. I've been doing a lot of these this month, so I could like take you screen by screen. I've like memorized. So you add in your colleges, then you're gonna add in that you're gonna be on campus at all your schools. From there, they'll start asking some questions about your parents or your guardians or you. You know, like, are you a veteran? Do you have any kids? Are you married? You know, things like that. Then they'll ask the same of your parents. And then they'll have your parents match or your guardian match their tax returns through the system very easily. You just press a couple buttons, you put your address in and you click match. And it'll actually upload a lot of the information that you need. If you're unsure of what to put in a box, if you click in the box in the application, there's a little menu that pops up on the right-hand side and they give you like this is what this is. So they'll say, remember, when you're filling out this question, this is for you. Are you married? You're like, no, I'm single, right? And then as you're going through like the tax stuff, which can be really scary, they'll tell you like, this is on line 1. So just find line 1 and put that number in. This is on line 12. So put that number in. So I would actually go to the FAFSA website because they also have videos that show you how to fill that all out. The last thing is that it's very likely, especially if you're a public high school, that your high school will have a workshop called Cash for College. It's sponsored through the Department of Education here in California, and it's actually a FAFSA workshop. So you might be able to ask your counselor, even like the counseling secretary, when the Cash for College workshop is, because they'll guide you step by step through that. But it doesn't have to be terrifyingly scary. The FAFSA website really steps you through it. I hope that helps.
I think that was very helpful. We have about 2 minutes. Does anyone have any other questions before we kind of end our meeting? I wrote down, oh, Shelby says thank you. I don't think our mic's working, but I wrote down the FAFSA website and the Cash for College workshop in the chat. If you didn't get to write it down, you can copy that, write it in your notes.
It looks like we just got a question from Paige.
Yes.
It says, I have heard that some UCs have an admit by major policy. Do you know if this is true? And if it is, do you know which campuses?
So generally, this is true for engineering type majors or any specialty programs that the UCs have. You cannot be a sophomore and switch into an engineering college at a UC. It's like, I mean, there's a paperwork process. There is a way you could do it. You just have to get a whole bunch of signatures, and it's pretty tough. So if you are considering engineering, you really need to enroll in the engineering college or choose engineering as your major for the UCs. I found this is less so for other STEM programs like biology or chemistry or environmental science. Especially amongst the pre-med community, there's a rumor that if you're a biology major, you're less likely to get in than an education major. That's not true. It's mostly for engineering. So if you're considering engineering, you need to declare engineering. They do have a limited number of spots for engineering students. So in that case, I wouldn't not apply engineering. I would say that you need to just apply to a variety of other schools just in case. The admit by major, what they're doing is they have a different set of criteria. They will look at the years of math that you have had. They will look at the classes that you have taken. And up until this year, they were looking at your scores in AP tests, possible subject tests, like the Math 2 SAT subject test, and your SATs or ACTs pretty strongly. So they do hold you to a slightly higher standard in the engineering department just because it's impacted, meaning that there's more people applying than they have spots for, and it's traditionally very competitive. And so there is a faculty committee that will help set those standards. This year, the whole table's kind of been thrown upside down, so they're doing the best that they can without test scores. They're probably going to be looking more at your coursework, how many years of science and math that you've taken, and any experiences that you've had in engineering. So if you have any STEM related experiences, et cetera, make sure that those go in your activities and awards section or your essays section. But is it, UCLA has 5 spots for pre-med biology majors, and it's, the Hunger Games to get those 5 spots? No.
Awesome. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions before we end our meeting? Oh, Paige said thank you.
You're welcome, Paige. Oh, one more thing.
So did Shelby also. She said the FAFSA was very helpful.
Perfect. One more thing on majors. The one exception to that are arts majors and nursing majors. So anything that requires an extra supplement, usually they have other criteria they're looking at. So like UCLA has a direct nursing program. Not to scare you if you're nurses out there, they have like a 2% acceptance rate because they take 35 people. So once you turn in your application, you indicate nursing, there's then a supplemental application, a why nursing essay, and then what have you done to prove that you're prepared for nursing. And then there's an interview process that you go through. So usually if they're admitting by major, there's a supplement involved and there's extra steps. The same thing for like Berkeley's. They have a couple specialty programs that blend entrepreneurship and engineering. There's supplements to that. Those are set aside. Those are different. They do have different criteria, and there is a limited amount of students that can go into them. So I just want to qualify that a little bit. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. We don't have any more questions from anyone? All right. Kat and Kelsey, if you could just stick behind for just a second so I can chat with you. Everyone else, thank you so much. And I will see you all later. And big thanks to Kat and Kelsey.
Best of luck. You guys are going to be great.
Thank you. Got this.